We just got out of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, and now it's time to talk about this movie. This movie, what was it? It was a sequel. A lot of people have been saying things I've been seeing online like, this movie, 30 years too late. What you doing, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice? But I would say, I don't know, kind of right on time considering all the other garbage that I've had to watch in theaters lately. Oh, this film was like a breath of fresh air. I got out of it and I was just like, oh, I feel like I can breathe again. Honestly, it's Tim Burton. Not every movie that Tim Burton has made has been amazing, is what I'm going to say, for me. But Tim Burton has a style, has just a way that he approaches, I feel like, filmmaking that just makes things exciting visually, audibly, in terms of the story. And this film delivered, I think, on all of those aspects. It has a great cast. The story is so fun. And I think they did a really good job of setting up a reason for why this sequel is happening in terms of what goes on in the film. I didn't say this, but I should have said this at the beginning, but we're gonna keep this one spoiler-free as I usually do with my first thoughts when I get out of the theater, but I will be following up with a full review where we'll be talking spoilers, ins and outs of the story. Also, my apologies that this light is very bright, so I feel like my neck just looks green, but in a way, kind of fitting for the visuals of this film. Lots of green bubbling goo and spittle. I think when we have movies like this, especially a sequel that's happening this late, the question can often become of like, what is this about? Like, what purpose does this serve? Why are we here? And I think the answer to that for me is Michael Keaton, because Michael Keaton is just such an amazing performer. And I feel like his creation with Tim Burton of Beetlejuice, this amazing, like, just scallywag of a demon spirit who's this trickster, and he's very chaotic. He's not really evil. He's not really good. He just kind of is. And he's always up to something. He's such a fun character, and getting to see Michael Keaton put that character back on and be Beetlejuice again was so rewarding. I feel like that's enough of a reason for me to go, and I hope that that is enough of a reason for you to go. But the other thing is that when you have something that's that compelling, when you have an actor in a role that I just really want to see that again, you could say to yourself, okay, so that's all we need. So what do we need? We needed to have Beetlejuice. We need Michael Keaton to be doing his thing. But who cares about the rest of it? Like, the rest of it, we could kind of phone it in. But they really didn't phone it in. I feel like they really delivered. They brought a lot of the theatrical elements of Beetlejuice that I loved when I first watched that movie, that made it stand out for me and still makes it stand out for me today. The one thing I will say is that there is some stuff that I missed from the original that I feel like this didn't have. And I think there is an element of simplicity to the original that the sequel forgets about the importance of that. When we think about what Beetlejuice is about, it's kind of just about this weird family moving to a new home and the growing pains of that at its core. And also there's ghosts, obviously, and also there's Beetlejuice, obviously. But it's pretty self-contained, I feel, in terms of the story. Like, and a lot of it happens either in the underworld or in the house. That's it. This film has a lot more working pieces to it. It's a bigger cast. All of the cast is amazing, but it does mean that I feel like there's less time for us to focus on the elements of it that are the most interesting. So sometimes we kind of get lost in the sauce with this film. That's my only qualm with it, is that it feels like, my only complaint is that it feels like it is getting a little bit lost in all these different stories that are going on at once. And it's still really fun, but then it becomes less impactful. I really wish, actually, that they had spent more time on the relationship between Lydia and Astrid. I think we do spend a good amount of time on it, but I feel like that should be the main part of this film. That's what it feels like the film wants it to be about, but we just don't spend enough time building that up so that when we have those scenes with those characters together, although we have two very talented actresses, we've got Winona Ryder, we have Jenna Ortega, I love both of them. I just feel like there's a bit of an emotional connection. Not that's missing, there's still emotional connection here, but it could be deeper. I wish there was more. It's a film that leaves you wanting more. That's the only thing. It's like, I don't know how you fix that other than do less and then just, you know, you can really go in on a few characters and a few relationships, or you make it, I think it could have been really good as a TV series, honestly. Honestly, I also come back whenever I think of Beetlejuice to the cartoon, and I really loved the cartoon. What a wild time that was. It's wild to come to this movie and think about how a huge plot point in Beetlejuice is this really old demon wanting to marry a teenage girl. And I feel like whenever I think about that, I'm like, wow, that's really a thing that happened. And we all were like, this is so interesting. And when I watched the cartoon, it was like a relationship that I romanticized. How bizarre. It's got a really weird ending, too. So prepare for that. It already is weird and fun and campy and big because it's Beetlejuice. It does all of those things. But then at the end, it really is just like, yeah, we're just gonna go for this. And is it weird? Yeah. I don't know. Do you think there's gonna be a Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice?
If this movie makes money.
They kind of, I don't think they really set it up, but I think they kind of left a window open.
Yeah.
Of opportunity.
Yeah, it wasn't explicitly like,
but it isn't,
come back for part 3.
I do, and that's the thing I do love about it, is that it kind of just is in and of itself a film. It just is there. That's it. Although, do you need to see Beetlejuice to watch this movie? Yeah, I think so. It's not like a sequel that you could just pick this up and watch it. I feel like you'd be confused on a lot of stuff. There's a lot of callbacks. But you know what's really surprising? It's a sequel that has so many opportunities to be super fan servicey, and it really doesn't do much in the way of fan service.
Oh boy, I am the opposite.
Oh, you think it's all fan service?
Well, not all, but I thought that there was a lot of fan service in this.
Yeah, but I don't think there's stuff that's there for the purpose of fan service. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, all of it's like fits into the plot of what's happening, I think. Like, they use everything that they refer back to, as opposed to it being like, that's just a reference. But maybe I'm wrong. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
I can't think of anything specific right now at the top of my head, but I know there were a few times where I was like, they just put that there. Just the sculptures. The sculptures,
yeah, the sculptures are obviously a reference back. But I just mean they don't like go like, look at that sculpture.
No, but there's enough.
But it's in the background.
There's enough things like that popped up in the film. But again, that's just a nitpick.
Yeah.
From me.
I would say it's either like background stuff that we don't really touch on, but that if you wanted to notice it, it's there for you. Or it's something that serves the plot when they refer back to something. Like the handbook and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the story, I think they could have simplified it, and I think they could have made it smaller so that they could have gone in more on the characters that they did have. But everyone that's in it is really great and is clearly having a fun time. I got to imagine this was a fun set to be on. Some of the effects work better than others. I would say one of my favorite elements in this, it's not a spoiler, but when there is that guy that shows up in the afterworld. In the afterworld, is that what we say that?
The afterlife?
The afterlife? What do they call it in Beetlejuice?
Afterlife.
The afterlife? Okay. But yeah, there's that character that shows up in the afterlife, and he's trying to figure out where he is and what's happened to him. And there's just a hallway with a janitor in the hallway, and the lights the way the hallway is structured, the way it lights up. It's so cool. I just love when we actually have practical elements. There is also some CG in it. Some of it is better than other parts. I would say the effects are a bit of a mixed bag, but everything that they do practically looks pretty good, at least as far as I could tell what was practical and what's not. Obviously, I'm not a special effects expert, but I do watch a lot of movies, so from what I could see. The makeup is amazing. Good Lord. Honestly, the makeup and costumes in this, and just how creative they get with some of the deceased that we see, the recently deceased, so good, is pretty fun. And they surprised me with characters that appeared in this that I wasn't expecting to see, who actually have bigger parts than I thought. There's also some really fun twists in it, where there are turns that we take that I wasn't expecting, things that are set up that I thought, oh, this is gonna go this way, and then they made like a hard left with it, and I was like, oh no. I don't want to say anything because it'll spoil it for people, but when you get there, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. And hopefully it surprises you too. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about in terms of these twists.
Yeah.
Do you feel like they were surprising, or do you feel like you were like 10 steps ahead?
Well, there was one I called out pretty early.
There was one that you called out pretty early. I mean, is it the one that I'm thinking of?
It's the one that I literally leaned over and told you.
Yeah, but that wasn't super early though.
Well, I didn't want to spoil. As soon
as you saw it?
I knew it pretty early, but I only leaned over like as it was about to happen.
Ah. Oh, okay. Because that was the moment when you were like, it's about to go down.
I didn't want to ruin it.
Right. So you felt like you saw that coming a mile away?
Yeah.
I did not see that coming a mile away. I saw it when you leaned over. That was when I was like, oh my goodness. But that was about the time that things started to click for me. It was when you leaned over. So it was later for me.
I knew where earlier.
So I don't know. I don't know if you'll be surprised by some of the twists, but I was surprised by some of the twists. Anyways, overall, I would say everyone was great in it. The music is amazing. I mean, Danny Elfman just crushes it as per usual. And I even liked the soundtrack for it. I thought was very fun and very fitting. The lights are great. The cinematography in this is also great, actually. The editing is also really good. Just, that's the other thing, like all elements of the film, they really nailed it. Just the only thing is, I think it could have been refined more in terms of the story. But the story is still good. I think people will enjoy it. Is it as iconic as the original? No. But I don't know how you do that. You'd have to create a whole new film.
This is a sequel. You need the original to make it better.
Yes, yeah. And it also makes me want to go back and watch the original, which is great. I think that's a gift. So overall, I would say I give it a 4 out of 5. If I could give it a half, I would give it a half. If we give halves, 4.5. If you prefer no half, then we'll say 4 out of 5. Because I think there is room for improvement. I don't think it's a perfect film, but it is amazingly entertaining, and I think you'll have a really good time, which is why I really want to give it that half. And it doesn't phone in any element of the film. What do you think?
3 out of 5 for me. I enjoyed it. I just thought that there were a couple issues. Yeah, I don't want to like get too into it because it gets into spoiler territory.
It's spoilers, but Dylan thinks there's a couple. Duck is saying there's a couple issues.
Yeah, it's really fun. I enjoyed it. I think one of the points I have to take off though is the fact that it's a sequel that I feel heavily relies on you knowing the first movie.
Yes. That's fair. So you would have preferred if it was a sequel that was more independent. That's fair. I mean, I think all film is stronger when it can stand on its own.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yep, I hear you. So that's kind of where we're at with it. Yeah, overall, would recommend though. And I think if you can go see it in theaters, I do think it's a really fun one to see up on the big screen and see with a room full of people that you get a laugh with. All right, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this reaction, this immediate reaction. We're back in the red light. Perfect place to end. I'll see you next time. I'll see you for the full review. And until then, stay nerdy, friends. Bye. And keep it real.